you?
What's up with it, man? I'm happy to be here. Feeling good, blessed all day, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so glad that you are here. I met you out at a community event. You were talking about what you were doing, and just share a bit about your background, because you came to this work with some lived experience that really gave you insight as to how to approach the work that you're doing with Pro Say Potential. So just tell us a bit about your background.
Yeah. No doubt I'll try to summarize the best as I can right now. You know, born in San Antonio, Texas, came out here when I was like 1 years old. You know, my dad was murdered before I was born, and my mom kind of had like a mental breakdown with that situation, you know, having boys on her own and everything. So my grandma took a hold of me. We was raised over in Yuster's projects, you know, heavily gang infested and whatnot. So it was natural that I fell into the gang culture at a young age. I was about 12, 13 when I really started kicking it closer to the central district. You know, I had homeboys up there. So just, you know, tapping into that culture, I was involved in a lot of different activities that led me in and out of the juvenile system over and over, juvenile prison, jail, just bad situations. My grandma went to prison. When I was 14, she went to prison. So now I'm pretty much on my own. But the story that a lot of people know most about, that I'm most known for at the point and where Pro Se came from, was when I was 22 years old. So I was 22 years old, and we got into a big altercation in Tacoma with some guys that led from a fight to a shooting. And it ended me in handcuffs, obviously, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm in the jail facing a life sentence at 22 years old. And what I noticed at that point was there was some younger guys coming in there, 18, 19, 20, 21 or whatnot, and they're just having a ball. They're enjoying this stuff. They're getting 2 years, 3 years. You know, they're turnarounds and whatnot. And I'm sitting there facing the rest of my life. So at that moment, I had the time to be sober minded. I wasn't smoking weed. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't doing anything. But I'm seeing all this havoc and this chaos in the lives of these younger individuals, and they don't even realize why and what that's stemming from, right? And they're just bound to come back inside and keep going till they end up in my situation or they end up dead. What I did at that point that was really unique, and I didn't realize that I was doing it at that point, because I believe you don't really realize you're making history at the moment until you do later on and look back at it. You're just doing what's authentic to you. I started pulling young people to the side. I'm like, man, look, bro, if I give you this honey bun, can you just try not to get in the fight this week? You know, and if I make you some dinner, then how about you read this book and you tell me something about it? Give me a book report. You know, if I do this, can you create a release plan? Just giving them different incentives to do good, you know, do things that were agreeable. And before I knew it, I essentially had like my own little like caseload of young folks around me, you know, and, you know, they're looking up to me, talking to me, you know, taking good advice. And simultaneously, I'm fighting for my life. What I did was, when I look back, it was foolish at 22 years old, you know, straight from the streets and whatnot. I fired my attorney. And I did that because I felt like nobody cared about my life as much as I did at that point. And if I wanted my life, another second chance of life back, then I had to fight for it. So I fired my attorney, man. And throughout that time, 14 months, they wouldn't give me no deal better than 25 years. They wouldn't budge on it. And so I went to trial, and I got the assault in the first degrees off my back. And then I walked away with a lawful possession of a firearm and an assault in the second degree, where I had to do 6 years. When I realized that true piece of empowerment, like that was empower. As you know, young folks will find destructive ways to feel like they're powerful, to feel like they're empowered. The gun was my power at one point. My bandana was my struggle. That was my power. The fear was my power. But that moment, the fact that I was able to essentially become somewhat of a lawyer in 14 months, I did that. And I was able to get on prosecutors like that and represent myself like that and tell the top lawyers in the community, they came and talked to me, talking about I should be a lawyer. That's the best they've ever seen as a young black man that's from the streets. I was like, bro, this is real power right here. This is what it is. And so I dedicated my life from that point on to empowerment, to true empowerment. That's when I started self-educating. I started reading, I started writing, I started studying and learning myself. I did more mentorship when I was in prison. I had to transform myself into this being, right, that transcended the area I came from, so that I can inspire the others to transcend the areas they come from. And that's where the Pro Se Potential came.
De'Vonte, I mean, come on. I gotta say that I just keep getting so overwhelmingly inspired by those who find themselves in the injustice system and find themselves incarcerated. And do everything they possibly can to change their set of circumstances. And you really are such a grand example of that. So thank you for sharing that background. I mean, then you come out clearly, what a huge feat for you. Like you said, that I could see how that would change your entire perspective when it comes to what power really looks like, shifting power and controlling that power for yourself. What a phenomenal story there. But then you come out and you realize like there's something you need to be giving to community with regard to all that you have really learned throughout that process. So tell us a bit about the birth of Pro Se Potential and
Definitely.
what it is, what it's doing right now in community.
Yeah, no doubt. So it's funny. I got to tell this part. So when I initially got out, I had been working with young folks in there for the better part of my time. So I wanted to be this motivational coach, a motivational speaker for a lot of the homies and a lot of the people that came from. So I was looking more like the adult spectrum. You know, I was going to still tap in with my young folks, but I was going to let them just see how I do it. And if they wanted to learn, I was going to teach them. And what actually happened was, as I was going in throughout the community and seeing different things, and I was putting on Facebook Lives, and people were like, hey man, my little brother, you know, my little sister, my son, my people that knew me when I was banging out in the streets, they was tapping in with me like, hey, bro, can you talk to my little bro? Like, I see what you're doing, you know what I mean, a little bit. So I was like, you know what? I can't reach everybody. I had people from out of this see my lives from like I did talks in Germany, India, or whatnot. They was tapping into for their young folks. So I was like, you know what, man, how do I do this? I could put this in a book, right? So I wrote Pro Se, The Art of Becoming More, which is my book, right? And it was about the lessons I had learned in prison, but I put them in a practical way to where you don't even have to go to jail, juvenile, or prison to establish, to use those in a practical way. Mm-hmm. So when I put that book out, people went crazy. Now they're like, okay, you're really doing this. They see me moving around the community, see me mentoring. It started off with mentoring and case manager, right? Doing mentoring, connecting people with resources I had, whether it was jobs, whether it was housing. I just being a shoulder to cry on. I didn't sit there with a lot of the young homies that died in the neighborhood. I didn't been with them when they was alive with guns on their side, sitting there having a conversation with them, giving them understanding. And then the community was like, hey man, you need to do something. Like you need to raise something up. Like you need to put something around you to make this a legal establishment. And that's where I decided one day, I was like, man, pro se. I went pro se. I represented myself. For people that don't know, pro se means to represent yourself legally. So I started I said pro se. Well, I represent myself in life now, because at one point I wasn't representing myself in life. This is me standing up on my own. Circumstances, situations ain't doing it, right? And I was like, well, how do I utilize that platform to help other people reach their potential? That's where Pro Se Potential started. And I was like, you know, let's put the nonprofit organization around that, Pro Se Potential. And what we initially started off was just mentoring. And we'll have little programs like we had a vision building program, goal setting program, because you can't go anywhere unless you have a vision of your life of where you want to go. The first step, and I tell this to my young folks that are incarcerated and my older brothers and sisters that are incarcerated, your first step is figure out where you want to go. Get the vision in front of you, right? And so we started doing vision building things and goal setting. And then after that, we were able to move around and do some mentoring, vision building, goal setting. And then some of the county people started looking at us, and we was blessed to get some smaller grants and some other grants to where we was able to open up different workforce development programs. Now we just got the Best Starts for Kids grant, which is a blessing. Shout out to King County for doing something right now. You know what I mean? Yeah. Big love to them, man, and the community leaders that advocated on my part for that. Now we just released our workforce development program, which is focusing on college and career readiness, financial literacy, social entrepreneurship, as well. Attached to that, we're doing the youth voice with it, right? And the way we're doing that is we're putting the young people, we're helping them lead their goal setting strategies, right? And also putting them in front of different public people, which is like mayors. We will put them in politicians and things like they be coming to the office. They have an opportunity to have the conversation with these individuals and let their voice be heard. And we take those different things and we hold these individuals accountable and create action plans with them. Yes. So that's what we're doing right now in the community on top of our mentorship and case management.
Oh my gosh. I I'm just so elated. I'm so elated. Like, we have such a strong Black community in Seattle. I don't care what nobody says. People talk about all these other communities, and I have traveled, and I really being a part of this, and you knowing that you did something for yourself and you brought it out so that now you can affect so many more people. Shout out to Best Starts for Kids for investing in you. Congratulations on that investment. That is huge, because now you're able to really build your capacity to serve more people. And I appreciate that there are some major, specific, intentional investments that are happening at our community levels to really scale up these amazing solutions that are being crafted on the ground. I say it all the time, probably every day. Solutions that are being crafted on the ground need to be scaled up. They need to be advocated for. They need to be invested in. This is what reparations looks like. And I've said it to the Supreme Court of Washington State. There are so many examples of how they can enact real reparations right here in Washington State because of people like yourselves and programs like Pro Say Potential. So I just appreciate you so much, because I know you have a busy schedule. I know you have a lot going on. But when I heard about this, I had to make sure that we brought you here. And before I let you go, I know we're over time, but just look right there in that camera. Let folks know how they can tap into Pro Say Potential.
Oh man, you go to prosaypotential.org. You can add me on Facebook at De'Vonte. We also have an Instagram at Pro Say Potential, or you can add me on Instagram under Prolific Tay. Either way, it leads back to the source, which is Pro Say Potential, man. Stay empowered.
Amazing. And our director Curtis is putting it right there in the comments, putting the link in there so people can check out your website, check out what you're doing, and find a way to be engaged, because there's a lot of young people out here. And right here at Converge Media, we talk about this all the time. Prevention versus intervention, right? Like, how do we prevent them from even getting into that system? So folks and they listen to people like yourself who have been there, done that, speak the language, all of that, because that is what is necessary. We need more advocates like yourself who can really tap in with these young folks, because we realize when we look at crime, when we look at the murder rate, particularly throughout King County, we know that it's really a lot of young folks that are involved in this. When it's about this gun violence, how do we disrupt it? It's programs like Pro Say Potential. Bro, I can't thank you enough for coming on today and sharing your story, and literally not just allowing your story to benefit you, but then taking that passion to a community level and to benefit so many more. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch, because as you got new programs, you got to come back and let us know what's going on.
No, you already know I will, man. I appreciate you for what you're doing, because I know we're going over time, but this is something that needs to happen. We need our own media that's going to put ourselves out there and bring those individuals and those organizations to the rise that are doing that, because nobody else is doing it. They shut us up too quickly.
Yeah, that's right. Power. That's right. We gotta have a platform to share our stories. That's why I love Converge, and I love being here on The Day with Trae. Thank you so much.
Most definitely.
Oh my gosh, what an amazing